the question.
Yeah, I should have a map on the wall, I think.
Right, shall we make a start? I'm sure there'll be a few more that join us as we go, but let's hand over to you, Jane.
Okay, excellent. Do you want to flick on the chart, Sam? So first of all, I just want to say good evening, everybody, and welcome, and thank you very much for joining us on this rather wintry evening for our first ever FDIN Jobs webinar, in conjunction with Sam, who we've been chatting with. Sam's founder of Obvious Candidate, and amongst other things, a very talented CV writing expert. We're chuffed that so many of you are here to listen in and hopefully participate. Obviously, you've all found the chat room, which is good. The webinar is scheduled to take no more than 1 hour. We really hope you'll find it of value. And when we're done, we'd love any feedback that you've got. Hopefully good, but bad, we can cope with bad too. So yeah, do send any feedback into us and we'll give you the details of where you can do that at the end. So I know we've done a bit of a check here, but just to make sure that everybody is everything is working as it should, can you just anybody that's just joined us, perhaps reply using the chat box on the right hand side. If I say, can you hear me, if you could reply with, if you haven't done already, with a yes or a hello Jane or anything else, preferably polite, that you fancy doing. So I'm just going to wait because there's a bit of a time delay. Oh, we have somebody in South Carolina. Wicked. Ali, hi. Good. Got a yes from you. Oh, and Margaret, hello. Yvonne, yes, excellent. That sounds like we are good to go on sound. Fantastic. Good. Okay, and one other question I've got, just before we kick off, is just to find out where you heard about the webinar. I think somebody answered earlier that they receive our emails, but if anybody else can tell me where you heard about our webinar from, it'll help me show that I'm doing my job properly and marketing it. So if anybody could let me know where they heard about the webinar from, that would be fantastic. Just waiting for those answers to come through. Email, great. I hope that means our FDIN email, I think. Emails, newsletters, weekly emails, terrific. Great, thank you everybody. That's fantastic, good. Okay, so again, welcome to everybody here. I've put up the agenda for the evening. I'm going to introduce myself and Sam in a moment, and then very briefly just explain to anybody who might not know what FDIN Jobs is, who we are and what we do. I'm then going to hand over to Sam, our Obvious Candidate, who's going to take you through the meat of tonight's presentation, which is what you're here to learn about, which is the 7 essential tips to producing your best CV ever, which apparently you can do within an hour, which counts, I think, as minimum stress and hopefully maximum success. So it's a very interactive evening. Sam's going to take you through the key points, but there's going to be lots of practical demonstrations, and we've got some, now you've all found the chat room on the right hand side. We're going to run some short polls throughout the evening too, so you can give us your views and feedback. Then there's going to be, just towards the end, a special offer for FDIN members to take that Sam's going to talk you through. And then at the end of this, we'd really like your views and advice on what we should be doing for our next webinar topic. We've got 3 suggestions, but if you have any others, we'd love to hear from them about them too. Lovely, thank you. So as I said, my name is Jane Payne. I had to get married to get that rather strange name. I am Marketing and Job Board Director here at FDIN Jobs. I've been working with the FDIN for the last year. So my background before that was in marketing and branding. So my first job was to help us with a rebrand that we relaunched about 4 months ago. And then I'm responsible for the running of FDIN Jobs, the whole careers portal. So all the editorial that you see, these webinars, the job postings, and generally the overall look and feel. Sam Waterfall, who I'm working in conjunction with, writes all the fabulous blogs that you may read on the site about winning the job. His background, so he founded Obvious Candidate, which is a specialist consultancy focused on positioning ambitious job seekers for the right next job at the best possible salary. He's a best-selling author of an Amazon Kindle book called The 7 Essential Upgrades, upon which this evening is based. And he's worked with everybody from students through to consultants, graduates, senior managers, and C-level board executives on getting them the job that they want. So very well qualified to do this tonight. So just a quick bit of introduction as to FDIN Jobs, who we are and what we do. It's part of the Food and Drink Innovation Network, which, looking at the feedback we've had tonight, most of you are hopefully familiar with. We have 20,000 members, primarily based in the UK. We've been going for 12 years. We run events about 9 or 10 times a year on a range of food and drink innovation topics. We publish breaking news 5 times a day, every day on our website, which you could, and there's a great back catalogue of those. And we also have a back catalogue of all the speakers' presentations from the events over the last 12 years, which is really worth having a look at, particularly if you're going for an interview and you want to perhaps gen up on what's been said about a particular topic or by a particular person on the site. So that's a little bit of background about what we do. So FDIN Jobs itself launched just 3 months ago. And I'm delighted to say in that time we've already become #1 for natural search for food and drink innovation jobs. Our rationale really was to help people potentially like yourself, because there's lots of places you can go and look for jobs like Indeed and Monster and CV Library. The issue I think we found particularly is it's quite tricky to wade through thousands and thousands of jobs to find the ones that you want, particularly in this niche. So we chose to focus ourselves on primarily on UK jobs, food and drink innovation within that. And we created 8 key categories to help your search become even easier. So they're in strategy, insight, innovation, nutrition and regulatory, concept development, research and development, sales and category management, brand and marketing, process and technology, and packaging. So hopefully just helping you save some time in getting through and finding the kind of jobs that you want to. We also produce a whole range of articles on different topics around food and drink innovation. And we've divided our jobs into 5 levels: assistant, manager, senior manager, controller, and director. Again, just to make your job search even easier. And you don't even actually have to come to the site to get alerts about the newest jobs. If you're interested, you can just sign up for job alerts and we'll deliver the best and most focused jobs to you direct to your inbox. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. So this would hopefully just give you an idea of the kind of clients that we've already had advertising with us. And part of our rationale was to really work direct with corporate companies rather than with recruitment agencies. I think we've all been in the position, well certainly I have, where you're applying for a job and you don't know who it's with or what the job's about or what kind of company it is you're applying to if you go through a recruitment agency. So our intention is to keep at least 80% of the jobs on the site direct from these kind of clients, which will hopefully make applying for jobs that bit easier for you. So there's the kind of caliber of say companies that we work with. So I'm going to hand over to Sam now. Oh great, Peter, thanks, glad you fixed your problem. Sam, I'm going to hand over to you now to take us through your 7 essential CV upgrades. If you have questions over the next 30 minutes as Sam goes through his presentation, please just write them in the chat room and I'll moderate and pass them through to Sam as he goes through. So just tap in at any time and we'll pass the questions through. All okay so far? Ping in a yes if you want to say yes and a no, or if you have any issues, let me know. Great, Sam?
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jane. And good evening, everybody. I know there's a few that have just arrived in the chat room, so great to see you here. Thank you all very much for joining us on this January evening. My intention for this, I'm sure you've all been to other webinars. I'm sure that you've attended lots of sort of sessions and trainings before. I think you can have interesting sessions, but I think you can also have useful. And my intention for this is really to make this very useful, very practical for you. So if you see something that you find useful here, by all means do a screen grab if that's helpful, but we will have a replay of this available as well. The book that Jane's already mentioned, the 7 Essential CV Upgrades, is really very practical. And what we're going to do is look at those 7 CV upgrades in a brief way, but hopefully a very practical way so that you can actually apply this. And that's what I really want you to be able to do. So my promise to you for this session, for sticking with us throughout this, and for giving up your this part of your evening, my promise to you, if you listen for this hour and then you take these ideas away and you apply them for an hour, then you're going to have your best CV ever. Now, of course, that relies on you having a CV to start with. And what I'm going to do there is really talk about these upgrades. It's really about upgrading. If you need to start from scratch, you'll definitely find some useful information here as well. But I can't say we'll get that done in an hour. It certainly takes me a whole lot longer than that to write CVs for my clients. The background behind this and where this all came from, I was in one of those situations where well, James has been talking about the corporates, and sometimes corporates are not just about jobs, they're really about money. And I was working at Boots, the chemist, and I was working in head office, and there was 3,000 people there in the head office. When we went through a major meeting, which was a huge headcount reduction, and the company went from 3,000 in head office to 1,500 in head office overnight. And it was just a terrible time to be there. I was very fortunate to keep my job, but my department went from 73 people in a strategic marketing unit down to 3. And I spent quite a lot of time there. I felt delighted to keep a job, but so guilty because I had kept my job. And I just said to a few of my colleagues, is there anything I can do to help you? And I ended up sort of offering a little bit of CV review advice. It seems to be the best I could offer. And I brought my marketing perspective to that. And that's what I do. I'm a marketer through and through. And what I do is I take people's CV and I help you to market what you've done. And that's what I started doing. I just said, well, if this was my CV, this is what I'd change. I'd do this, I'd make this. And they said, you know what, that's really helpful. And after I'd done 2 or 3 of these, they started saying, you should charge for this. And I'd been saying, no, I can't possibly do that. This is, I'm just trying to help. But after the 4th person said, you should definitely charge for this, I thought, well, yeah, maybe I should. And that was 12 years ago. So Obvious Candidate has come a long way since then, and there's been the books and the videos and all the other ways of helping. But what you're going to get here is really tried and tested. This really doesn't just come from something that we've just thought up or just started trying. This has been proven over and over again. So the thing that you really need to know about this is that it works, and people who've been applying this with me over that time period have gone and landed some jobs at really some of the most sought after and leading employers out there. So not only within the food and beverage industry, although many of them have been as well, and that's certainly where I've focused a lot of my marketing work in recent years as well. So let's start off just by taking a quick poll. What I'm interested in here is who's here tonight. So let's just have a look at this, and you should get a poll that appears in your chat box. So that should be going live now. Take a look there. What I'm trying to do is just understand who's here in terms of marketing, sales, finance, R&D or product development, innovation, whether it's nutritionists, dietitians perhaps, or maybe you're a recruiter or a talent agent or a spy. Maybe you're in there for that reason as well.
I'm not sure anyone will fess up to being a spy, Sam.
You've seen through it, Jane, but I thought I'd just test. Okay, so mostly marketing, my people, and R&D as well. Okay, great. No one's crept in from finance. That's interesting. The numbers still coming in there. I'm going to close that, and then you should see the results to this. So yeah, mostly marketing, R&D, some sales in there as well, innovation.
So we've got someone who's a student. We need to put student in there next time.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Let me ask you this question as well. How much reading time do you think your CV will get? So let's just take a poll on that as well. A lot of people saying less than 30 seconds. Probably many of you recruiters. Yeah, and this is the thing, you see. This is what's so important about the CV, and this is why the updates, everyone's sort of most people come in here at less than a minute. Now, of course, we can't say for sure, and we're not trying to be scientific about this, but you know how this goes. You get a CV. When you look at a CV, we're human, and part of our jobs is about making quick decisions. And so, unfortunately, it happens about us as well as what we're trying to do. So we really need to make sure that our sort of jobs are so clear, the way that we're explaining things, the way that we are actually expressing ourselves. So very, very important. I want to just ask as well another one. This is how long will it be before your CV actually gets judged? So how long will it be read for? That's one thing. But how long before it actually gets judged? I hope this is getting slightly alarming for you at the moment, because we spend a lot of time creating our CVs, writing about ourselves, trying to get the message across. But we're so quick to make a decision. And it's scary because there's no way you can read a CV. You know that in as little as 9 seconds or 15 seconds. I'm going to end that poll. Yeah, I mean, the consensus is exactly right. Somewhere between 9 and 15 seconds. So at best, you're likely to get 2 minutes of reading time, but that's very unlikely. Most likely less than 30 seconds before someone believes they know you. And then they actually made up their mind between 9 and 15 seconds. And what they decided there was they'd seen enough to think they know whether they want to take you forward or not. And what we do at this point, I'm sure you've heard that statistic as well about how quickly we judge each other when we meet each other in person. And it's very, very fast. And what we do, once we've made up our mind about someone, are they like us? Do we like them? Do we want to get rid of them? What's it all about? It's just the same when we start judging a CV or a document. Once we've actually made up our mind, fairly emotionally, what actually happens is we then start looking for evidence to back up our decision. So if that first impression is fantastic, then we look for other evidence within that CV to say, yeah, we were right. And that's our brain kind of backing it up and sort of being good to itself. It's a very sort of reinforcing psychology there. But if we already think that this person's not right, it's a bad fit, they're not good enough, then we just look very quickly for enough evidence to back it up, and then that CV has gone. So it really is that difficult. So your first impression had better be a good impression, or it'll be your only impression. And it really is, I'm afraid, as simple as that. But there's good news, because your CV does not have to explain all you've done. And your CV does not have to detail every job or responsibility that you've ever had. In fact, all your CV actually has to do is to captivate and create desire to meet. The role of the CV is not to explain everything. You can explain more of the detail when you meet them in person. What you've got to do is sift through everything you've done, all the best things you've done, and create the captivating news that's going to make them want to actually meet you in person. I saw something once, I don't know if you've heard of, some of you in marketing innovation have probably read about Tom Peters. Tom Peters is a famous management consultant, and he was once summed up by The Economist. They called him the Uber guru. And it occurred to me, gosh, well, if The Economist, a very authoritative publication, is calling you the Uber guru, you probably don't need much more of a CV as a global management consultant. They just know that you're going to know that. So the question is, how little can we get away with almost here? Because there's not a lot of reading time that goes into this. But there's more good news. And the good news is that we can learn how to write a marketing CV. And I don't mean that's only for marketing people. For me, a marketing CV is the CV that markets you, because you're the product when it comes to this. We can learn from the journalists' tricks of the trade. And what that really means is about a headline, because people are captivated by headlines. Think about as you walk along the street, maybe on the way home from the office or at work, when you see a newsstand, it's the headlines that grab us. Or if you're scrolling through the news online, it's the headlines that make us click through. So if you don't have a great headline, you're really missing out. So of course, that brings us directly onto the essential CV upgrade number 1. It's all about the first impression, adding a headline and adding a profile. Now, you may have one of these already. There's a great headline here in this little picture we've got of the Sun with Freddie Starr. The Sun, of course, is famous for its headlines and grabbing people's attention. You don't need to go, of course, as far as the tabloids, but we can learn a lot in terms of arresting somebody in these 9 seconds and guiding their thinking. So the problem is that there's no headline, means there's no direction for the way that you're trying to. This is a marketing document that your CV is working at, and you're going to get this glance down the page, the first page, and if it's more than 2 pages, an even quicker look at page 2 if page 1 has done its work. So the headline is the way that you get direction. If you've got no headline, what you're saying is you're saying to the reader, you can work this out for yourself, what I'm all about, my career, everything I've done. And how would we possibly do that? Why would we leave that hugely important decision up to the reader? So by using a headline, you have this huge opportunity. Why is it important? Because it's the most read element, and it also lets you put ideas into the mind of your reader. Any of you who've worked on a press release know the importance of this sort of almost a reverse triangle, an upturned triangle. The importance is all at the top in the headline and the first line or two of the press release. And like with a newspaper article, almost no one gets all the way down to the bottom of that press release. The journalists know whether they're interested or not just from the opening words. And your CV is the same. So we must learn from the journalists. So how do you write a compelling profile, and what makes a good headline? Well, profile that's working. Okay, so this should then be under your headline. It's going to position you for the job. So your opener for your profile needs to say exactly what you do. It should highlight the best of your relevant experience, because in 9 seconds, they're not going to read past the first 2 or 3 paragraphs. So you've really got that space, and you've heard the expression perhaps above the fold, which used to refer to in a newspaper before you had to unfold a big broadsheet newspaper. You need on your CV to have all of the best stuff front-loaded at the very front piece of the CV, because that's where they're going to make the decision. Do they want you or not? Are you coming to interview? So highlight the best and relevant experience. Show appropriate geographic or sector expertise. It's going to be concise. It's going to be absolutely truthful. And I'm a maniac for the truth when it comes to CVs. There's no reason. I've never found somebody who doesn't have enough good experience to be able to write a great CV. We can find the good stuff. So never any need to make things up. Dares to be different. How can you stand out? How can you actually catch the attention? Because this is the trick of the journalists. They write a headline or a sub-headline or a first paragraph that grabs us enough for us want to read on. So what do we need to put into your opening paragraphs to grab them so that they read on and find out the other good things that you've done? And of course, we want to really combine facts and emotion. Okay, that's something that people don't always do when it comes to a CV. Facts are usually present, but what's the emotion? And when you think about it, someone who is trying to hire you or find someone for a job usually has a huge problem. If they've got an empty desk as part of their team, the jobs, the tasks are piling up there. And if you've ever been in that hiring chair, actually interviewing, you're desperate to find somebody who can actually fit in and do this job. You're not looking to give away a job and a salary. What you're looking for is someone to come in and solve those problems. So we should write the CV in such a way to actually emotionally save that person, emotionally help them to realize that you can actually come up with the answer. What I've done here is just created a sample of this. So John Smith's opener above the fold on his CV here. We've got a title that clearly sets the tone. I like to use these spaces, okay, because this gives my headline 2 discrete ideas. The first one, John is a senior executive leader, okay, so that positions him for this particular role, but he's also a food marketing specialist, okay, so we've got 2 ideas in there. Now, if that is already what the recruiter is looking for, what the hiring manager is looking for, already they're thinking, John could be right, and the hope goes up. And then what we do with the first paragraph is explain in more detail exactly what you do. It's all about being clear and being specific. And when we get into paragraph 2, what we're looking for here is actually the best of your past. So name what you're currently doing, but then the second sentence should always be about the previous experience gained and how that fits in. And of course, here what you're trying to do is show the best of what you've done. So naming the companies, naming the brands that you've worked for. Maybe naming the locations if that's particularly relevant for the type of work that you're doing. And then when it comes to the final sort of paragraph here, if we're doing a 3-paragraph profile, adding a relevant or emotional extra which is relevant to that particular position. It may be, like in this case, an MBA, or it could be that you're tenacious, and that you're actually, you have something beyond the career. Maybe that you run marathons, or there's more to you beyond the job. And this is the place to put that kind of element in there as well. The final piece, which is a kind of optional, but I really recommend it, is to add a fourth line here, or a fourth paragraph, which is what I call the tailored now seeking line. And this changes with every time you send the CV. And what you do is you tailor this to the particular name of the job title on the job description. Now seeking, job description A, and you then put in there where that is located. So what within the industry, and ideally where it is. Now, where are they located? Now, you don't want to sort of, if your dream company is located in Scotland, you don't want to say that you're located in Cornwall. So make sure that you're very clear. Obviously, what you're trying to do here is display that you are exactly what they're looking for. That's what marketing is all about. Marketing is understanding what the consumer is looking for and giving it absolutely to them. So that's what that's really all about.
Sam, is there a maximum sort of recommended length for this first profile piece?
I like to think, it's a great question, thank you. What I like to think of as this as being the first third of page 1.
Okay.
So the name, and you don't need curriculum vitae, by the way, at the top. Absolutely not necessary. This is very clear what this document is, so don't waste the space with that. Certainly give that line to this headline, like the senior executive leader. Then these 3 paragraphs should take you no further down than the first third of that page.
Okay, great.
The way I then continue is into the next section of this. So the second third will be into the areas of expertise, and the final third of page 1 would be all about the selected highlights and achievements, and we'll come on to that.
Great.
So upgrade number 2, the specific role, and making sure you're targeted to that. So the problem is there's absolutely no such thing as a generic CV or a general CV, and people sometimes write a CV and then send that out to company after company and wonder why things aren't happening for them, because a general CV is really one that doesn't work for everyone. It's just not good enough. And although it's a pain to have to target and tailor and customize to every single application, the worst thing you can do is think, well, I'm going to send out 100 CVs this week. That's a bad approach. The right approach is, like you would do with any marketing, any innovation that you're working on in the food industry, you work out what consumers want to buy. Work out what this particular job is about, and then tailor your CV so that you're positioning yourself and targeting yourself as the answer. How do you do that? Well, you can see right here, we're tailoring your words towards the job. So you research it. Research through their job description, maybe their job advert, certainly their website or company materials. And what you're doing at that stage, you're harvesting their keywords and their requirements. What are they really looking for? And part 2 is that you tell your story, as a good marketer would, for them. How do they need to hear your story? You don't just say, well, I've written my CV, they can read it as it is. The best thing about this is to be able to flip your CV from being, literally for 180 degrees. Don't just tell the story of all of your history as it happened, because what if that's not relevant to this particular job? There's no need to be so sort of formulaic and so linear about this. Far better to look at what do they want and then really tailor this. So you're always tailoring, but never fabricating. Quick Q&A session. If you've got a question here, Jane's going to be awarding a free 30-minute CV review to the first question that comes through. So has anyone got any questions coming from this?
And I've got my pen and paper ready to log this down.
So any questions on your mind at the moment? What we'll do, whoever gets the first question in, we will organise a special CV review for you. We'll get on the phone with you, we'll go through your CV and give you a free review for 30 minutes.
Oh, we've got a question in from Ed. Right, Ed, you get that review. Thank you. Can I use your opening lines as my covering statement?
Still with pride, Ed. If yeah, absolutely. If it works for you, go ahead. I don't own those words. I did write them, and they were original. But yeah, if it works for you, please take it. Basically, you can adapt that. It's a very proven formula that will work for many people. So yeah, good luck with that.
Excellent, Ed, and I'll be in touch to sort out that 30-minute review for you. Thank you.
Upgrade number 3 Okay, so this is adding an expertise or skill section. So this really should follow on from the paragraphs that we've just been talking about. So now what you've done with that first above the fold top third of the page, you've grabbed them. Your headlines grabbed them. You've told them the best of what you've done, and now you're going to go into some more detail. So what you're going to do now, if you are 10 years or 15 years into your career, trust me, you are an expert, okay? So describe this as areas of expertise. If you're a student or a recent graduate, that can sound a bit much. So we call it key skills, okay? So work out where you are in your career, but this isn't the place to be holding back or to be bashful, okay? So what you need to do here, I mean, the problem is that people don't make clear what their skills are or what their expertise areas are. Very often they'll just, with page 1, go straight into, here's a complete history of everything I've ever done, and it will go on to page 2 and page 3. No good, okay? When someone's got 9 seconds, do you think they're going to be able to find what they need from your entire CV and your entire career? No chance. You need to help them ease into the best of what you've done. So how do you go ahead and do this? How do you actually bring out your brilliant benefits from behind the dull detail? Because trust me, if any of us talk about our career for 2 pages, it starts to get dull, okay? So what we need to do is give the reader what they want to read, exactly like the journalists do. So here's what you can do. Research what that job requires in terms of skills or areas of expertise. List your 10 to 15 areas of best skill, okay? Usually the things you enjoy doing or that you're very good at. Then prioritize the 4 to 6 best of them, which best fit the job requirements, okay? So you're tailoring to what they need. Because none of us can be experts at 15 things, okay? If we're going to be an expert, it's maybe 4 or 5 things only. And then you support each of those with credible evidence. So here's an example. Okay, this is a key skills one. The way I lay these out, I use bullet points here after paragraphs in the first page. I use also bold and then regular fonts, okay? So the bold means that if someone has got a 9-second window to read your CV, they can skim read this. Highly numerate, presentation skills, innovation management, business acumen and leadership. Great, okay? I've got that. I'm taking it in an instant. Now, if I want to go into the highly numerate, I go, oh, okay, so there's more detail. Cambridge University mathematics graduate. Okay, that's a badge. Okay, that works really well. And then we've got a bit more detail. Now that might be enough for me to think, yes, this is a person I've got to speak to, okay? But then there's more, of course. And what we find is that these skills are prioritized based on what the company is looking for. And guess what? They tell you that in the job description. The bold allows the reader to skim. And the details build your credibility, okay? So make sure you've got some real facts there, and numbers and details really help. CV upgrade number 4, okay, the brutal edit, okay, and I call it brutal because this is so difficult to do for yourself, okay. You know how long you have worked each of those jobs, how you poured your heart and soul into it, how you did the long hours. I know some of you are still in the office at the moment. Trying to edit that out can be very, very difficult, but trust me, in 9 to 15 seconds, how much are they really going to read? So we need to make sure that we've actually let them find the best stuff. So we're back into this idea of less is more. The problem, of course, is that across my life, I've accumulated too much for a specific CV. But if it's only getting these 30 seconds to cut through, I'd better cut out some of the least important stuff. So how can you do this? Create a full CV, okay? So, we talked about finding 14 or 15 different areas of expertise or skills. For your full CV, include them all. But when you're sending out a tailored CV, all you do, of course, is you prioritize the ones that are most relevant and delete all but the most important 5 or 6 of those areas, okay? And the same with other detail. They're not going to read it. And if you've got one of those CVs where you've got maybe 6 or 7 or 9 or 10 bullets under one job, people don't read those. They read through about 4 or 5 bullets, and beyond that, they stop reading. And if they see 10 bullets in a row, they'll just skip the whole section. So everything you think you're showing off, they're missing, okay? So less is more. The message here, smile at the memory, hit the delete key, do a brutal edit. Okay, guess what? There's another free 30-minute CV review up for grabs here for the next question. So Jane will be looking out for these. If that's coming in, I'm going to keep going in the interest of time. But Jane, stop me as soon as you've got a question. Essential CV Looks like Anne Margaret was there.
Yeah. So the question is, what's the best font to use for a CV?
Interesting question. I'm not sure that there's a best, but certainly something that looks modern and certainly something which is easily read. Okay, so you perhaps know about serifed and sans-serifed fonts. The serifed ones are the ones which have the little sort of details on the corners of the letters. They tend to be harder to read. Certainly if people are looking at things online or as sort of on the screen as we tend to these days. So a sans serif font is usually a good idea, and a classic one is also very good. You may have come across those especially marketeers, where you send a font and then it doesn't work as you intended it to work. So don't go fancy. Something like Helvetica is my preferred option. So if you want me to come down on one, I use Helvetica.
And
I try to use a 10-point font.
Sorry, Daniela wants to know what size is there.
Yeah, 10 points. 10 points is what I would recommend. If you're really pushed and you can't do anything other, 9.5 is a cheat, and it often works. So I have been known to use that little cheat. But yeah, Helvetica, 10 points. So essential CV upgrade number 5, adding interest and wow. Okay, very often the problem is not that you haven't got the experience. It's not that you don't have the expertise. It may just be that your CV is too dull and boring to keep the attention of screening recruiters. And the quality is lost and hidden too deep. I mentioned Cambridge University. Now, you don't have to have come from Cambridge, but I was working with a client last year, and I discovered that she had been at Cambridge, but I discovered it at the bottom of page 2. And it reframes everything. Everyone knows, like it or love it, Cambridge tells a story. And in terms of recruiting, it's a hugely beneficial one for her. So we moved that story from the bottom of page 2 up into, guess what, paragraph 2, where we put the best bits. That's where it should be, because there it positions, it screams intelligence. So what we're looking for here is your wow and your interest. So the first way to do this, wow tip number 1, say it with numbers. Okay. Now, even if you think your job doesn't lend itself particularly well to numbers, find some ways to get some numbers in. What have you done that's been about sales, or you've improved the P&L, you've got increases, you've achieved reductions, maybe you've got cost savings. What were the results? What were the percentages? Too many people honestly can't use percentages. I hope that's not you, but really use this effectively. Numbers are a great way of showing that you understand, especially in business. Next one, the wow tip number 2, say it with concise detail. Here it's about, think about that brutal edit, add the facts, but cut out the extra words. You don't need too many flowery descriptors, okay? So, you can cut out the adjectives, but really make sure you've got the facts in there so that it's really laden with that. And a great way of making that impact is to use brands or companies where you can, of course, being cognizant of confidentiality. The next one, say it with verbs. Starting your paragraphs with a verb: established, led, negotiated, pioneered. They're action words, of course, and these action words suggest that you get things done. So it's a really neat way of doing that. Essential CV upgrade number 6, display your best bits. Okay, you've heard, if you've ever seen Big Brother, any series, you know that at the end of this, and it's not just Big Brother, of course, it's any reality TV, as someone's getting evicted, we get the summary of their best bits. And the best bits, we don't want to watch a show for all of those weeks, but if we can get the highlights in 30 seconds or a minute, that's what we need. And your best bits is exactly what needs to go into your CV. So the problem is sometimes you feel immodest or as if you're bragging, but if you fail to reveal all, you can really miss out when it comes to your CV. So this is the time to really hold back on the modesty and come out with all the facts. So here's how you do your best bits. Scan down your CV, maybe as it stands right now, and list the 7 to 10 elements which give you the most pride. Now, a lot of my clients struggle with this word pride. So if you don't like pride and that doesn't work for you, here's the workaround. What is going to be the most impressive list of 7 to 10 points for a hiring manager or a recruiter out of everything you've done? And you want to give a lot of emphasis, of course, to the things ideally that you've done most recently. But if you've got one thing which is an absolute cracker, but it's from 10 years ago, sure, include that in the list. at least in your long CV. It may not always make it through into the tailored CV when you edit that down. Ask what else you've done and what isn't on your CV. I've never done one of my CV reviews with someone where we've not been able to find more. Okay, every single time we can find things that are brilliant that you've done that aren't on your CV yet. So what's missing? And now check that these are in the profile right up there at the top of page 1. And then if not, add them as bullets underneath your profile or make them into your areas of expertise so that they're absolutely there on page 1. And another great tip for your bottom third of page 1 is to create I call it selected highlights and achievements. And selected suggests, of course, that there's more that you've not even had a chance to talk about. So this might be the 4 or maybe even 3 best things you've ever done. So if you only had a few minutes to talk to that recruiter, what would you say? What would be the 3 stories you would tell? And you do that in exactly the same way as we saw with the areas of expertise. Use a bold intro that just grabs them and tells them what the headline was, what did you do, what did you achieve, and then maybe give them at least 1 line or 2 lines on how that works. Upgrade number 7.
Sam, I've just got a question in from Daniela. How
Yep.
current should the list of elements, the 7 to 10 elements, be? So
How current?
Yeah.
As current as possible. So it's ideal to have done, to be looking at your recent job. There's that expression that we're all as good as our last sale, and it's very true. So if you've got something which is very recent, and of course, depending on your work that you're doing, if you're in the scientific part of the food industry, science is always moving on, of course. If you're in the marketing world, my goodness me, things have moved on in the last decade. We used to have a tiny budget for digital, and now it's all about digital. So, having a piece of experience from even 5 years ago, if you're working in digital, probably isn't going to cut it anymore. Things are moving on very, very rapidly. So another great thing to be thinking of here, if you're in a job search or thinking about a job search, you can start improving your CV this week while you're still at work. And it's a great way, if you're in the doldrums about your job, definitely think about your job tomorrow when you go in. What could you do today to help build your CV? And if you've got an element of expertise which is missing, how can you put yourself in the kind of project that will grab that? That would work really well to hopefully lift your reasons for going in when you're looking for the next thing anyway, but really help to give you some current expertise or current areas of skill, or at least perhaps a new project you can talk about. Essential upgrade number 7, the never nevers. Okay, these are things we don't want to see on your CV. So maybe you've got some of these, take them out. Here's the tips. So don't get too creative. Okay, sometimes it's really tempting. I'm going to stand out by putting this on a pink background, or I'm going to put pictures all over this. But actually, recruiters, they want to be able to compare different candidates. And if one candidate has got a sort of luminous CV, it's really not very comparative. I did know a designer who did something very creative. He actually turned his CV into parking tickets and put it onto under the windscreen of the directors of the design agency he wanted to work for. He did get the job, but I don't recommend that approach unless you're a designer. Or at least I don't recommend doing anything too creative unless you've sent a serious CV first. Most people really want to take you very seriously. They're looking for a serious candidate. So have a conservative, small c approach to the CV. So ditch the crazy fonts. We've talked about Helvetica. Logos are not essential. These days it's not a wow to be able to copy a logo from Google Images. It doesn't make anyone think that you're a better designer. And we've all heard of the brand names anyway. So use the name, but don't use the pictures. Forget colors all over it. It doesn't help, and it also causes a lot of problems. Very often, CVs these days, especially for big companies, go through a scanner first. So even if it's going through as a CV, and sometimes, of course, as you know, it's an application form. Keep it simple. Okay, it really helps. So black and white, easily read, well spaced. Remove your photo. It's important in some countries, not in the UK. You don't want to be judged on your picture, and LinkedIn does that already anyway. By the way, if you're putting a picture on LinkedIn, do test it with photofeeler.com. I'm not on any commission, and you can get your photo tested on there for free. But make sure, because they will go and check you on LinkedIn, so definitely go and get a good photo and check it on photofeeler.com. Eliminate acronyms and industry jargon. You may know, what a GBU is. Maybe it's a global business unit, but maybe it means something else to their mind. Cut those things out. Cut out all the jargon. Keep it simple. And the best way to do that is give it to somebody else to read and check they understand it. You're losing people. Don't do that. Avoid filling every inch with text. White space can be very valuable as well. It gives a sort of refreshing feel to the CV. And I really recommend not sending as a Word file. These days, half the people are on Microsoft Word and Windows PCs. The other half of the world are on Macs, and there can be a bad formatting fit between the two. Save it as a PDF, send it as a PDF, and you'll find that it arrives looking exactly as you wanted it to, and how you'd spent so much time formatting it.
Sam,
Okay.
just a quick question. Richard's asked, a lot of recruiters ask for CVs in doc format. I think my experience of that is because they want to take your name off the top, so that
yeah, they do. And and of course that's the caveat if they have specifically asked for it. Now you have to. The reason, Jane, as you've just suggested, is because they are going to sell you in. So if you've got a trusted recruiter, that's fine. Send it as a Word document to them, because they're going to re-edit it for you. But have a good conversation with them about what they're going to do. Because you want to make sure that it's in their interests, and they're professionals as well. So you hope that they know what they're doing, and hopefully they will then send it on as a PDF so that it does the trick for you. But if you're sending it direct, maybe you're applying to a smaller business, definitely always use a PDF. So hopefully that's that one answered.
Thank you.
So there you are. They're yours now. You now have the 7 essential CV upgrades. I hope you can see how simple they are. And I hope you can see how logical and powerful they are, because they are, as I said, they weren't magicked out of anywhere. They've come from working with thousands of clients over those years. They are the things that when we change those first, they make the biggest difference. Are there, of course, other things? Yes, of course, we can keep upgrading and doing all kinds of things. But if you make those changes to your CV, I guarantee you'll make it better. And I hope you can see you can do some of those very, very quickly. So it just leaves one question from me, and that's, will you do it? Yeah. Now, I'm not sure how many glasses of wine you might have had, whether you're ready for it now, but you could make those changes tonight if you wanted to. So you've listened for an hour. I promise you, if you apply those for an hour, you'll make that really work for you. And I did promise you as well 2 ways that if you wanted to have extra help with that, so we have got a special offer for you here. So I hope stood by my promise on this bit is the sales pitch, so being very open about that. So if you want some more help, hang on, because I've got some very good deals for you here. They're basically 2 exclusive special offers only for the FDIN jobs members. Okay, so from the menu, what we do at Obvious Candidates, so you know what we do, we actually work with our clients to help you get your right next job. Because I'm so passionate about careers, because you spend your time giving your time to your company. Okay, I want you to be working for your next job, if not this one, in a job that you love and that you are effectively giving your time for and exchanging. So what we look at is not only getting you the next job, but the right next job, and also at the best possible salary. And the way that we do that is with these 6 steps. So step 1 is all about getting you into the right next role. And it's thinking about, well, can you get into the right next role as your first step? Or maybe you need to get some other experience first, maybe to broaden, or maybe get experience into a different area. The next thing is then to go through and get the full detail out of you. And I have to pull that out of you using what we call a pre-write interview. And we spend 60 to 90 minutes on the phone talking to you and finding out the best of what you've done. From that, I can then write with you or for you your high impact CV, and we make it absolutely different. I had one the other day, and this was the end of last year. The client said to me, and this was just lovely, I think you'll like this, and he said to me, do you know what, Sam, my wife looked at me differently. And this was somebody who'd been married for 20 years. And what he'd done, he'd shown his wife of 20 years his new CV, and she said, wow, she didn't realize what he'd been doing. And so it's in all of us. I promise you, the right CV can absolutely transform this approach for you. The next thing then is to translate that, and it's not a quick copy paste of your CV into LinkedIn. LinkedIn is different. It's hugely important, but what we do is we optimize this so that people come to you, they find you, and I also help you with the coaching so that you know what we've changed, why we've changed it. So that's what we do there. The next bit, step 5, once we've got your documents ready, your CV, so that you can send it out, and your profile, which is there for you 24/7 on LinkedIn, it's then about your interview success. So how do you perform and get your interview right? How do you actually prepare properly? How do you perform in that vital hour? And how do you follow up in the most effective way to maximize your chances? And then, of course, we want to make sure you can negotiate the very best salary, because we want you to be rewarded for all the work that you've gone through. So we always try to make sure that anyone who's working with us gets such a salary increase that they never have to pay for our services effectively. We're trying to outdo that, of course, all the way through. So the offers here for you, CV coaching and CV writing, because maybe you now understand the 7 essential CV upgrades, but perhaps you'd still like a little extra help to get them really working for you. So these are, I'm afraid, very limited offers, because I'll be working with some of you in person. So if these sound helpful, please email me. You can see my email there. It's sam@obviouscandidate.com. I'm afraid it's going to be first come, first served, because there's one of me, okay? But trying to make this as relevant as possible for you. Now, if you want to do just CV coaching, okay, what we can do is we can spend 2 hours. The coaching thing means you do the work, okay? Coaching, I'm there to advise you. We'd have 2 sessions. Firstly, to analyze exactly what's going on and recommend what you should change. Then you go away and change it. Then finally, what we'll do, we'll come back and we'll actually fine tune and improve it together. So effectively 2 1-hour sessions, but although I'm trying to finish this on time, I'm not a clock watcher when it comes to coaching. I try to over deliver for you every time. So that offer, what we're doing there, save over 40%, only £115 there instead of 194, but I can only do 4 of those. Okay, so if you want CV coaching, we can offer that for you. And then if you want actually the CV to be written for you, I will do that for you. I can only do 3 of these because it takes me at least 8 hours to write a professional CV. Part 1, we will go through it together, because I can't do it without you. We will go through detailed analysis. We will recommend what we're going to change, and we'll do that together. I'll get your input in writing with all the facts. We'll then do a pre-write interview together to find the very best of your story, and you'll be amazed at how great you really are and the way that we can do that. And then I will take all of that away and write you a high impact CV. And finally, we fine tune it together so you're 100% happy with it, that it's all accurate and correct. That's normally 374, but we're going to save 20% for FDIN jobs members here. And we get bringing that just under £300 at 297 plus VAT. So they're the offers. It works, okay? So these make a big difference for people. So if that's helpful, fantastic. But if you've got what you need there already, then very happy for you just to go ahead and take that, because we're really here to help. And that's why I'm involved in this whole approach, working with Jane and FDIN jobs. So I hope that works for you. Again, the details there, if you'd like to make this work for you, if you'd like to step on board, I'd be delighted to work with you. So I hope that works. And of course, everything at Obvious Candidate is personally tailored. Okay, we can move fast, we can move slow, and we really make it work for you to get you that job, the right job. That's what's really important. So that's it from me. What I'm going to do is hand back over to Jane at this point, and we will hang around in the chat room after this if you've got more questions. So we will hang around until we've answered all of your questions. That's my promise. So do let me know if you've got any other questions that you've got. But Jane, thank you, and over to you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Sam. That's been brilliant. I have one question that's come through from Sarah, which says, is there a way that you could show us how all of that comes together in one example layout? And also, what would be the maximum length of CV that you would recommend, or an ideal length of CV in terms of pages?
Okay, I've not got that live with me, and just like, you know, like I said, I'm a maniac for the truth in a CV. I'm also a maniac for my client confidentiality. So I would never share any of your CVs, and likewise, I'm not going to share any of the existing clients. However, I could create a sort of example CV like I did earlier, because John Smith or whoever we picked wasn't real. So I can definitely do that for you. Let me advise you just quickly. Page 1, split it into 3/3, okay? The first third is the headline and that profile. The first paragraph is all about what you do in an absolute clear sentence. Paragraph 2 is the best of you. What do you do at the moment and where has your history come from? And harvest the best of the rest of your CV and put it into paragraph 2 so that all the good stuff is up there at the very beginning and they don't miss it in the first 9 seconds. Then paragraph 3, maybe that's whether you get the emotional or relevant connection, maybe the MBA, maybe the charity work, all the other exciting stuff you've done. And finally, the 4th paragraph in the first third is that now seeking line, and you tailor that every time to where you're sending the CV for that application. The second third, the middle bit if you like, is your bullet points of your areas of expertise or key skills. And the bottom third is your selected highlights and achievements. And they're the very best things that you've ever done. So when you look at that, your front page is so powerful, you've sold them. When they come onto page 2, all they're doing is just checking up because they already love you by this point. That's the whole point of a high impact CV. Page 2 is then all about the facts. So that's where we give a very edited, very pared back version of your job history. And it's of course, it's the companies, it's the dates, it's the key things that you did, but we're not telling a huge story about each one because if they want to meet you, they already want to meet you now. And then maybe the bottom third of that page is your education, your professional qualifications, and any extras that you might have, languages and so on as well. But of course, languages may pop up way up at the top into an area of expertise if you're going for an international position.
Great, thank you.
That's how I would organize it in a nutshell when it comes to that. And in terms of length, 2 pages is really what I'd recommend. If you are someone who's got a lot of published work, then maybe you can go on to 3 pages.
Great, thank you, Sam. Somebody's just about to leave and has said, are we going to email them a download of this webinar tomorrow? Or
yes, yeah, absolutely. We will send this out. I'm not being crazy about these sort of scarcity tactics or anything. We will literally do these on a first come first serve. So if I can help you, brilliant. If I'm busy, I'll let you know. But if you come in and you want some help later, no problem. Please keep in touch and let's connect on LinkedIn. And if you've got other questions, yeah, you've got my email address. We will send this out because I really want you to have this information. Like I said, my passion for this is I want it to be useful, not just interesting. So I hope it's been a useful hour for you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sam. So just to wrap up, we're going to be hosting another webinar, hopefully in about 4 weeks' time. And we'd be very keen to hear from you which of these 3 topics you would be the most interested in. So the first one is interview preparation masterclass, preparing, performing and following up. The second one will be about setting up your LinkedIn profile for job search success. And the third one will be 10 job search acceleration tips. So if you wouldn't mind putting in 1, 2 or 3 into the chat box, that would be great. Or if you have another topic that you think we should, you'd be interested in looking at, tell us that too. So I'll just wait for those to pop through.
Well, while you do that, I've seen another question, which I think is a very good one, and I'll keep it anonymous. Someone's had a job that didn't work out, and they want to know, should they leave it out of their CV? No, what we need to do, it depends on the time that you were there, okay? And it also depends whether it was your most recent position or not. So it's difficult to advise without knowing the full facts. However, what I would say is always be truthful. You can go there and something doesn't work out. I'm sure you've got a good reason why it didn't work out. I tend to relegate the job history to page 2 anyway. So what we do therefore is we put the focus onto your areas of expertise which are relevant to your new potential employer rather than looking all historically at the past. So if it didn't work out, let's say what you were good at and we put the focus on what you can do. But we're always truthful about where you spent your time because sometimes things don't work out. Many of us have had jobs like that.
Excellent. So it looks like, Sam, it's interview preparation and LinkedIn are running head to head. So I think we need to push that out to the rest of our FDIN audience and then decide, and we shall come back and let you know within the next couple of weeks which one is running next. So thank you very much, everybody. We really hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be around for another 10 or 15 minutes after we stop broadcasting. So if you have any other further questions, please pop them in the chat box. And thank you so much for your time. If you've got any other feedback, thanks, Sam. If you have any other feedback on the webinar particularly, you can email me, jane.payne@fdin.org.uk. If you've got any questions about your CV, it's sam@obviouscandidate.com, or if you'd like to take Sam up on his fabulous offers, that's the email address to do that too. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great rest of your evening. Cheerio.
Look at that, 9:01, Jane.
Boom.
So we'll hang on in here, and thank you for the thanks. Time well spent. I appreciate that. Thank you all. Thank you.
Good. Oh, and just Ed and Anne Margaret, I need email addresses from you, please. If you could just ping them into the chat box, then I'll get in touch with you. So it's Ed and Anne Margaret.
Just having a few questions there about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is so important. These days, as soon as someone looks at your CV, it's once they've gone through the 9 to 15 second test of the CV, if they like you enough from that, then they're going to start looking at you on LinkedIn, and maybe they even go to LinkedIn first. It's very, very important. So what we do there is a different way of making sure we focus, because again, the mindset is different again online. But what we do with the obvious candidate approach is we're trying to go and understand the psychology of the viewer of your profile and the psychology of the hiring manager. And if you've been there, you know how difficult that can be, trying to find the right person, or maybe you've hired the wrong person into your team. Because if you've done that, you know how expensive it can be to go wrong. You have to then go through the HR steps of getting rid of that person, and that can be hugely complicated. And at the meantime, you're not getting the work done. Then you've got to start hiring again. So there's getting your areas of expertise, getting your skills across through a CV. This is not just a marketing job. We're not just trying to promote you. I'm passionate about making sure that you are hired into the right role, which is very important, and LinkedIn is just as important. So I think we'll come back and do the next webinar probably on LinkedIn. It's the logical next progression, and then we'll move on to the interview skills as well. If you need information on either of those things, in the meantime, just email me, because we can let you sort of peep ahead if you need to. Especially if you've got something that's coming up, if you've got an interview coming up in the weeks ahead, let's talk, because we can make a big, big difference for you.
Great. And just while there's quite a few people still on, which is lovely, does everybody think that 8 o'clock is a good time to do this kind of webinar? So yes, if you think it is, and if you'd rather a different time, tell me the time instead. So yes, if 8 o'clock's good, or if there's a better time, please put that in the chat box. Good, we're getting some yeses for the 8 o'clock. Seems to be a winner, actually. Oh, yep, 8 o'clock is definitely a winner, but not on a football night. Excellent. Are there any other questions that people have? I'm just scanning back down the chat box here. We've talked about the leaving things out of a CV. And we've talked about length of time. Is it necessary to display all education history, including all GCSEs, Sam?
Okay, it depends how old you are, and you needn't reveal that for us. Basically, if you are a recent graduate, that's more important. If on the other hand you've got 10 years of work experience, they really don't care about your GCSE in English literature, quite frankly. Use that if you got an A, and if you did a fabulous project, and if literature comes in somehow into your work. But if it doesn't, no, absolutely not. So don't worry about those things. A levels, they tend to want to see, but we don't need to go into all the detail. Likewise, if it's been several years since you graduated, and we all know how distant some of those degree modules can seem, everyone realizes that if you've got 10 years of career history, they're not going to be quizzing you on your dissertation. You'll be pleased to know. So yeah, and put the facts in. And this is, again, page 2 is about the facts. So put the facts in for the job history so they're accurate with the right dates. Put the degree down there as well. Sometimes, you know, I quite often hear people started a degree and then for whatever reason didn't finish it. Just be very upfront. Don't make it look like you got the degree. Say that you've got, you know, you've not got it, but you did part of it. And then, you know, have a good reason why you left. But no reason to go all the way back. And also your paper round, if you have one of those, or if you worked in a sweet shop when you were 16, no need, you know, because unless you're a recent graduate, but they're going to be much more keen to hear about what you've done in your recent job.
Excellent, thank you. Any last questions?
I'm going to just say, Jane, again, that the answer to that is it comes back down to that brutal edit. And all of these things, whether it was, you know, GCSE French or whatever it might have been, you worked really hard at the time to get those grades, but let it go. You know, they don't need to be on there now. So, yeah, brutal edits, that's the thing. Work out your question to yourself, and it's so easy, really, when you think about it. What is the recruiter going to think? What is the hiring manager going to want to see from me? And I can pretty much guarantee it's not your bronze Duke of Edinburgh award.
One last question that came in actually was, how do I overcome a big gap in my work history?
So we get lots of reasons for that. Some legal, some less legal. You know, I've seen it all over the years. If you've got a gap, it could be a maternity leave, for example. You know, great. You know, so what we do there is we put the focus on your expertise. So page 1, once again, focuses on what you can bring and how you can solve the problems that are relevant in the job description at the place you're applying to. And if it's a smaller business you're applying to, ideally you want to be speaking with the team first, and maybe even ideally the hiring manager, understand what they're looking for, and then you tailor your CV, especially page 1, those areas of expertise and that opening line. What are you? And the emphasis on what are you and what you can bring and what you've done, rather than this is what I've been doing all the time. And then on page 2, we put a gap there, and we mention this is a gap. And if it is a maternity leave, then we say that it's maternity leave. You know, choosing to be mum is a great choice, so there's no problem with that. And what you can do as well, perhaps, is to talk about, and one of the things we look at in the career coaching is what are the right steps to take. And if it's a recent gap, you know, how do you get back in? Because it might be that you need to get some interim work or to get several bits of experience first. And if that gap's further back, still mention it, explain what it was. Maybe you were traveling, a plausible and again, truthful story, but we put the emphasis on the important things rather than what was missing.
Okay, terrific. Lovely. I think we should wrap up now. Thank you so much again for your time, and we will send you a link to this presentation probably tomorrow or Friday. Cheerio, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye for now. Speak to you on the next one.
Bye-bye.